I thought I could get away with cheating until everything fell apart. I always thought I was the smart one in my relationship, the one who understood people better than they understood themselves. I had my husband Josh completely wrapped around my finger. He adored me, trusted me completely, the kind of guy who'd bring me coffee in bed and send me texts just to say he missed me. And I loved him, I really did. But something was missing. It wasn't his fault. It wasn't even mine. It was just life. We'd been married for 5 years, and somewhere along the way, the thrill disappeared. No more butterflies, no more spontaneous kisses in the middle of dinner, no more nights where he'd pull me in like I was the only person in the world. But then he came along. Daniel, Josh's best friend. The moment I noticed Daniel looking at me a little too long, I felt something I hadn't in years. Excitement. A dangerous kind of excitement. I didn't mean for anything to happen at first, but when Josh started working later, staying at the office longer, I thought, why not? It was just a little fun. Something to remind me of who I used to be before I became just someone's wife. I told myself no one would ever find out. I was so sure I could keep things separate, that Josh would never suspect a thing. But the thing about thinking you're the smartest person in the room? You never see the moment you lose control. Daniel and I had rules, strict ones. No calls, no messages that couldn't be deleted, no sneaking around in obvious places. It was easy at first. Josh was always busy, and Daniel was always around because they were best friends. We didn't even have to hide the way we looked at each other because who would suspect a thing? I felt unstoppable until the first crack appeared. Josh came home one night earlier than expected. I was still in bed, scrolling through my phone, wrapped in nothing but a towel. He leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, studying me. What? I laughed, but something in his eyes made me uneasy. He hesitated. Then, you seem different lately. My heart stopped, but I was good at this. I smiled, stretched, and let the towel slip just enough to distract him. Different how? He shook his head, smiling back, but something was off. That was the first sign. The second, Daniel started acting weird. We were at a party, Josh's work event, and Daniel kept avoiding my eyes, would barely talk to me. I pulled him aside, my heart pounding. What the hell is wrong with you? I hissed. He just looked at me. I can't do this anymore. I almost laughed. Couldn't do this anymore. I leaned in, whispered, you don't have a choice. And maybe that was when I started to lose. The night everything fell apart started like any other. Josh was out. He told me he had a late meeting, and Daniel was already at my house. It was risky, stupid, but I liked risky. I told myself I was in control, that nothing bad would happen. But then my phone lit up. A text from Josh. Meeting ended early. Be home in 15. My stomach dropped. I pushed Daniel toward the door, telling him to go, but the moment he opened it, Josh was already standing there. He knew. And I realized with bone-deep horror that this wasn't an accident. It was a trap. Josh stood there, perfectly still, his face unreadable. Daniel? He froze. And me? I did what I did best. I lied. I forced a laugh, stepping forward like this was just some crazy misunderstanding. Babe, you're home early. Josh didn't move, didn't blink, just watched me. Then he did something I didn't expect. He smiled, and suddenly I knew I was screwed. I know everything, Mia. The way he said it, calm and quiet, was worse than if he had screamed. My body went cold. No, that's impossible. I forced myself to look confused. What are you talking about? Josh finally stepped inside, closing the door behind him. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He pressed play. And then I heard it. My voice. I swear Josh is so blind, he doesn't even suspect a thing. My own laugh echoed back at me. I could probably do this right in front of him and he still wouldn't get it. The air was sucked from my lungs. It was a recording. My voice, my words, my betrayal. I felt sick. Josh had set me up, he knew. He must have known for a while, and the worst part? I had no idea how much he had recorded. Josh turned the recording off and finally looked at me. Really looked at me, like I was a stranger. How long? His voice was steady, controlled. But I knew him. I knew how much rage was underneath. I couldn't think, couldn't breathe. Daniel was dead silent next to me, probably waiting for me to fix this. But how? There was no fixing this. I did the only thing I could. I lied again. I put a hand on my chest like I was shocked. Josh, he cut me off. Stop. The way he said it, flat and final, made my stomach twist. He was done. And then, the final nail in the coffin, he turned to Daniel. Get out. Daniel hesitated, looking at me like he wanted me to say something. But what was I supposed to say? Josh had already won. Without another word, Daniel left. And just like that, I was alone. Josh didn't scream, he didn't beg, he just stood there, staring at me like he was seeing me for the first time. I had never been so afraid in my life, because if he wasn't yelling, that meant he didn't care anymore. And when a man like Josh stops caring, that's when you've really lost. You were my world, Mia. His voice was hollow. I would have done anything for you. I swallowed hard. But you laughed at me. The recording. I felt nauseous. He walked past me, calmly picking up his car keys. Josh? I reached for him, but he stepped back, like I was disgusting. I already called a lawyer, he said simply. I'm filing tomorrow. My knees nearly buckled. No, he can't mean that. You don't have to do that, I whispered. We can fix this. Josh just shook his head. Go ahead, he said. Try to talk your way out of this. His smile was cold. But for once in your life, Mia, you don't control the situation. And then he walked out, leaving me in the ruins of my own making. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Josh had never been cruel before. But now, he was ice cold. I tried calling him, no answer. I texted, left on read, then I tried Daniel, blocked. That's when I really panicked. I could feel everything slipping away. I thought Josh would fight for me. I thought he'd be angry, that he'd at least want to argue, but he didn't. He didn't even care. And when a man like Josh stops caring, you don't get a second chance. The divorce papers came 2 weeks later. Everything moved so fast. I wasn't ready. I wasn't prepared. And the worst part? Josh didn't even fight me on anything. He let me keep the house, the car, my half of everything. But he left without a single word. That was the part that hurt the most, because that meant I didn't matter to him anymore. And after everything, after thinking I was so smart, so in control, I finally realized the truth. I didn't just lose my husband. I lost the only person who ever really loved me. And I had no one to blame but myself.